Hi everyone, welcome again to our Obizz podcast series where we share wisdom on health matters, on wellness matters and business and economic matters, of course relating to the pandemic, and you can check out our channels on covidkenya.com. Today, I'm honored to grab somebody who is visiting the country, who I've come to know for last couple of years, Nikunj Shah, who runs Select Global, which is a recruitment firm out of India, but focused on Africa. So we would like to talk about his experience in recruiting and some tips that we can learn from, because many businesses here are all involved in recruiting. So, how can we get smarter as far as finding talent is concerned, and also to explore on venture and angel investing. I think everybody, especially business people in Kenya, are looking for good avenues to invest, where traditionally we have been investing in banks, in fixed deposits, or in government bonds and real estate, but there's a category that is evolving over the past few years in the sort of private equity, innovation and venture investing space, where Nikunj, I believe you have some good experience, so we can also explore on that.
Sure.
So once again, welcome, and thank you for making the time to visit us.
Great, thanks Dar, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so you are a global nomad. You're originally from Kenya, but lived in a couple of different continents. So tell us about your journey.
Sure, yeah. So Kenya, thanks very much, Nar, for having me on board. I grew up in Kenya. I was born here in 1974. So I've been around a while, and studied here, then actually moved to the UK for further studies, and then joined our family business, which is around the world. So as a result of that, had the opportunity to work in Papua New Guinea, then studied in France again, back in the UK, then moved to Angola, worked in Angola, and then finally ended up in India in 2008. And we've been in India since then.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so It's been quite a journey.
It has. And how has it been working and living in India?
Working and living in India has been it's been a challenge. Obviously, before we moved there, I'd only visited India, I think, for a sum total of 8 weeks in my entire life. So it was very, very new. But like anywhere in the world, when you move to a new place, you very quickly have to figure out what makes it tick. And any place has got good points and bad points. So you try and focus on the positives and make that work for you. And you just learn and you meet lots of people, and through that eventually you get to learn how to enjoy the place and work well there. Yeah.
Great. And when did you get involved in the recruitment industry?
So the recruitment business started actually from our time in Angola.
Okay.
So in 2005, myself and my wife moved to Angola, and that was a very tough time in Angola in those days. Angola had come out of the civil war in early 2000s, and it was boom time in Angola. So it was the wild west. There was a big oil rush. There was a big rush of investment coming into Angola, and it was a very bureaucratic, corrupt country. So very tough environment to work in, and had the talent pool was very limited, because the education system just hadn't been functioning for so many years because of the war. So we needed to bring in people to help us scale up our business over there, and it was just hard to find talent, and actually it was very hard to find recruitment consultants around the world who understood what we needed in Angola. So that was the genesis of the recruitment business. Mm-hmm. So I started recruiting for myself in Angola. And at the same time, our group was expanding also into Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique. And we were facing similar challenges in all of these countries. We used to recruit a lot of expatriates out of India. And we felt that the recruitment consultants in India just didn't understand the continent.
Right.
And as a result, we were wasting a lot of time and energy and money trying to hire people that would fit into what we needed in all these countries. So that's the genesis of it. So when we moved to India in 2008, we just set up a small team initially for our own group, and then over time realized that actually there were a lot of other people that could benefit from the same solution that we were providing. And that's how the recruitment business started. So, and here we are 12 years later.
Right.
We have over 400 clients now across Africa and other parts of other emerging markets. And hopefully we, growing from there.
Okay. And so you've been doing recruiting for over a decade. What is it that you've learned? What trends have you seen? And, what advice would you give to people searching for talent based out of here?
Oh, wow. So what are the trends and what have we seen? Look, I think the biggest challenge every company faces is finding, good talent, right? So what we've seen over the last decade has been a shift actually from companies. A lot of companies in Africa were bringing in expatriates to fill middle and senior level positions. These are the sort of areas that we focus on. And there's been obviously a conscious push towards trying to bring more local talent on board. And that's quite a tough journey, actually, for an organization. It has a lot of issues in terms of changing the cultural mindset of the senior management and putting in place processes, therefore, then to enable that to happen. And that's been a challenge. There is great talent locally available, especially in Kenya, for example. Kenya has absolutely fantastic local homegrown talent. In fact, a lot of Kenyans are now working overseas because other countries have realized what a great talent pool we have here. But a lot of companies, I think, are missing out on that. It takes time to actually get yourself ready as a company to bring on board the talent and to, I think, change what has been a cultural mindset in a lot of people as to how many positions at senior level can be filled by local talent. That shift has really been happening now for a while. And what we've seen actually more recently is that actually, unless it's a very specific technical role, really there's no reason why you can't hire locally for a lot of the top positions in your organization.
Okay. So I mean, that's definitely an interesting trend and how people can tap on good talent, just from our home ground, right? From Kenya. So what is the ideal process and tools companies should be using to attract that kind of talent?
Sure. I think so. Let's start at the beginning. You really have to start with your company brand and image, and making sure that your company is attractive to the local talent. I think for a long time, organizations in this part of the world felt that that they could attract anybody. It was an honor to work for this organization. One of the things that you find with local talent is actually they have a lot of options. There are a lot of good companies out there all looking for good talent. So actually good people in any market actually have options. So you have to make sure that you as an organization, number one, are attractive for them to come and work with. And that is not only from am I doing the right thing for my employees, it is also about am I doing the right thing for the environment, am I doing the right thing, am I an honorable company? These are all things that a candidate looks at when they're applying to the organization.
And this is over and above the financial package that
absolutely. I mean, a lot of the good talent will actually accept even lower financial packages within reason. To work for an organization that they feel is doing the right thing, is ethical, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's the first part of the challenge. And then I think once you got to that point and you're now getting the candidates in, it's important to have the right process in place to be able to really to understand which of those candidates that you're looking at are the right fit for your organization. You could have 10 accountants applying for a job in accounting, but an accountant that works for a large multinational may not be a great fit for a smaller organization which is a startup, for example, or it's a smaller manufacturing setup. So you need to understand the personality fit of the candidate as well. And you kind of also need to understand what is the ambition level that the candidate has, and is that right for that job, for example. So attitude, personality, the right fit beyond technical skills are all important when you're looking for these candidates.
Right. And how do you or your firm can help companies through that journey?
So I think one of the advantages we have is that, we ran businesses ourselves. So I ran a manufacturing unit and I've run many of them, in fact, in different parts of the world. So we understand the pain points that the clients have. We understand when somebody comes to us and says, I really want somebody in this position. This is the type of attitude and personality we're looking for. This is the culture of our organization. We can understand those things. So for us, where we add value is, one, really understanding the type of person you want beyond just the technical skills. So the job description for us is very much just a starting point of a conversation. Beyond that, it gets into all the other nuances that you have. The second piece, once we get that information, we follow a very rigorous screening process, which involves, and every organization can have different processes, but I think they should have inbuilt into that, one, interviews obviously is the best way to first of all understand what a candidate is all about, what their ambitions are, who they are, what they can do. And then beyond that, to ensure that you're making sure that you're actually filtering out the ones that are not the right fit, and making sure that the person is the right fit, I think it's important to look at background reference checks. We find that those are very, very useful, and we spend a lot of time on that. And then we also use things like psychometric testing. Now that for us, it's not in and of itself as a tool, it's not enough, but together with everything else that you've built up, that you know about the candidate, it builds a good holistic picture.
Okay. And you are based in India, you have a team based in India, but your clients are based here, your talent pool is based here. So how does that work? How are you able to service those clients and the talent based out of India?
That's a great question. We actually recruit for, as I said, I think about 400 plus companies across the world, mainly focused on Africa. I think we bring to the table 2 or 3 things that are different from a lot of other recruiters. Today, in this day of internet age and remote working and working from home, the team could be anywhere, actually, to be honest. We could have recruiters sitting anywhere in the world. What we bring to the table is, I think a lot of it is around our own personal experiences. So having lived and worked in Africa, and having visited probably, I think, 25 plus countries for work, and having met clients in all of those countries, I think is one big advantage that we have over a lot of other recruiters. We know the difference between Lagos, Lumumbashi, Lilongwe, and Lamu. And going back to my earlier example of an accountant in those 4 different places are 4 different people, fundamentally.
Yes.
Even if it's the same company, same industry, etc., because of their local environment, they will be 4 different individuals potentially. So that's one advantage we bring. So that I think it's the inherent knowledge that we have of the continent. And then secondly is this, we've been doing this for over 10 years. We've really built up a great candidate pool and a great network. So we can very quickly start reference checking people. We understand who are the good companies, which are the good educational institutions that people would have come from. So all this together means that hopefully we can put together profiles and candidates and share those that are actually more relevant to each organization.
And how do you go about building your candidate pool?
Oh, it's with the old-fashioned way. It's a lot of it is kind of knocking on doors, talking to people like yourselves, asking for references. Once we've understood, what type of individual we need for a particular role, we just get onto a headhunt. And headhunting in the old days, I think, used to be restricted mainly to kind of CXO level type positions. We have found that actually the same process is what you really need for middle management upwards in this part of the world. Yeah.
But in terms of building the candidate pool, do you work on specific mandates and then go and search for the potential talent, or do you actively invite potential candidates to submit their CVs and be on your database?
Sure.
How does that work?
No, so we tend to, because that's a great question as well. I think we as a recruiter, obviously time is always limited in terms of how much time do you have on any search, etc. So we do focus on specific mandates. However, what we often find is that we will get candidates applying for roles to us. So we do put out some adverts on typical social media platforms and so on as well, for specific roles that we might be recruiting for. But through that, often we get a lot of interesting candidates, and those we definitely keep aside on our database as people to look at and to watch out and look for. And I think a lot of the skill set in our team is being able to join the dots and saying, oh, candidate X applied for job Y, but actually job Z looks like a much better fit for them. Why don't we look at them and talk to them about that opportunity?
Okay. And you obviously specialize in senior recruitment, CXO level, but what is the most, but you also look at the mid-market. How do you define the mid-market? What is the most senior role that you can help people with?
The most senior,
most junior.
Junior, sorry, sure. So we actually recruit from at managerial level and upward. So we actually, honestly, we get involved in, you want a financial controller for your organization, you want a senior manager for your organization, you want a production manager for your organization, for example. These are all roles that we would look at. We tend not to get onto, say, roles in the shop floor, because I think there are probably better recruiters in country that can help you with that. The minute it gets into any kind of role where now personality, culture, attitude become more important, that's where we fit in. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned the manufacturing roles, but even in the service sector, we worked on, let's say, a junior HR person. So roles that have become now, anywhere in the managerial cadre, that's what we would look at.
Okay. And from your experience, are there some specific examples you can share where, there could be some traps that people have, fallen over, that, people should watch out for?
As recruiters,
yes.
As clients? Yeah, look, we've come across, on multiple occasions, candidates that have, inflated their CVs, for want of a better word, and where we have been through our screening process and reference checking and so on, been able to figure out that actually a lot of what was on the CV is actually fictitious. And I think in those cases, the clients had not spent enough time in their process on the reference checking and due diligence. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one. I think that is one big pitfall that they fall into. The other area I also find is a lot of clients feel, for example, I must hire the best talent, and the best talent for them means maybe someone who's come from the best university or someone who's gone and worked for one of the best companies. That for them is the definition of the best talent. However, it's horses for courses. Now, just because somebody worked at, for just out of example, Coca-Cola is a large multinational, they may not be the right fit for an upstart soft drinks company in Kenya, right? Because the person, in terms of what they need to do on the job, is very different. In Coca-Cola, they might have had a lot of structure, a lot of support. When they join a much smaller organization, they have much less of that and need to do a lot more things on their own. So you need to, when you define the type of person you want, you also need to be very careful around making sure that they're a good fit for your organization at that stage of the evolution of the organization.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just in terms of some practical tips, in terms of how to go about recruiting. So if you're looking for, say, someone quite senior, interviewing one person is probably too few. And you can spend months interviewing a large pool of people, but you may not be so structured as to finding that ideal person for you. So, as a rule of thumb, what sort of pool would you recommend people to interview, for example?
Sure. So I think there's no. I wouldn't say that there is a definite number. It depends obviously on levels of seniority. Obviously, the more senior you get, the fewer potential candidates there would be. Our job as recruiters is basically to make sure that we put in front of the client sufficient number of good candidates that they would be able to at least choose one great fit and hopefully have a backup if possible. What I've seen is, yes, a lot of HR people, a lot of clients will be like, oh, I've got 5 profiles in front of me, send me another 5. No, I think it shouldn't work that way. Mm-hmm. it's okay to say that, look, I'm not entirely sure what I exactly need in this role. And what happens a lot of times is that during the interview process, that becomes clearer to the client also. So a lot of times what we suggest is, let's have an iterative process where we will put, based on our initial conversation, what we've understood from you about the role and what you're looking for, let us put a few candidates in front of you. And if that, after that first round of iteration, it seems that it's not quite right, let's review again together to see what is it different that might work, and then come back to it again. So you can have a process like that.
Great. And then in terms of the COVID era, what are you seeing in the jobs market? Any particular trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, look, it depends country to country, and it depends obviously industry and sector to sector. We found, from about April till about September of this year, clearly a lot of companies had kind of put everything on hold. There was a lot of uncertainty. So there's been quite a bit of, disruption as a result. We've seen in some parts of the world, so for example, in India, a lot of the companies have ended up having to do very large salary cuts because demand has really just kind of not, just disappeared. This is now starting to get better again. So a lot of companies are now reinstating the salaries they had cut and bringing people back up to a more...
These are salary cuts for new roles or for existing roles?
No, existing management, yeah. And at senior level, these have been as high as 50%.
Yes.
So it's been brutal in that part of the world. In Africa, I've seen it hasn't necessarily, there's obviously been an impact. There's obviously been quite a few redundancies. There have also been some implications on salary. However, there are two other things that are going on. I think there's been a less of an impact in a lot of parts of Africa in terms of COVID. I think economically, things have been definitely a little bit better than it has been in other parts of the world. And I think honestly, I think the African governments, you have to thank for the way that they took a fairly pragmatic approach to the shutdowns and lockdowns.
Yeah.
And I think that's avoided a lot of the additional damage that you could have had. But in parts of West Africa, we've seen a lot of churn because a lot of individuals got scared, got worried, wanted to move back to home. So a lot of expatriates have left and gone back to their home countries. So all of a sudden, a lot of clients have found themselves very short of staff. So it's varied in different parts of the world, but these are the kind of things that we're seeing.
All right. Okay. So thanks once again on sharing those insights on the recruitment front. So just switching gears quickly, on another part of you is involved in the investing side. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I studied engineering. I've always been a bit of a techie geek, so when we moved to India, it actually gave me an opportunity to actually get involved in technology again, and because India had a very nascent and burgeoning kind of startup scene. So in 2010 or so, I joined Mumbai Angels, which is an angel network in India, and that's how I started getting into angel investing. And I was always looking for interesting, new, disruptive ideas where technology was getting involved to kind of, help improve the way business is done or improve the services that are provided. So over the last 10 years, I think we've invested in about 20 plus companies. My wife Seema is also involved as well. She also loves the interaction that we have with the startups, etc. So we've invested in about 20 plus companies over the last 20 years.
Okay, and is that all India based, or have you looked at
it's predominantly India based. We have invested in Kenya in one entity through our family organization, but apart from that, it's all India based. And I think that's partly because at early stage investing, at least our hypothesis is that you really kind of need to bet on the team. And it's much easier for us to engage and gauge the team and figure out how good they are if they're closer to us.
Okay. So I understand that yes, you've invested in one company here, but you've also been looking at some of the startup scene here.
Sure.
And for our listeners who may not have access potentially to invest, say in the venture capital or private equity field, say outside this region. Are there some some contrast you can give in terms of what is it that is that ticks, say, in India that doesn't here, and that may prevent you from investing in here, but also maybe to some of the entrepreneurs here, what is it that they need to put in place that is not currently here?
Sure. Look, I think the advantage we have in India is that we have access to a massive market at our doorstep. So, if a company is successful in India, in order to scale, they don't ever have to leave India. And that's a huge advantage. I think it's a big difference between that market and, let's say, a market like Kenya, where very quickly, just because the population in India is 30 times the population of Kenya. So therefore, the minute you decide to get big in Kenya, once you've reached a certain point, you now need to start looking outside, and that becomes always more complicated. So I think scale is much easier in that part of the world. The other difference I see is that in India, we very much bet on commercial ventures, right? I think the scene in East Africa tends to be a lot more social impact driven, which is great. But then those equations in terms of valuation and expectation of the business in terms of returns are very different. So if you're looking at it as a purely commercial investor, sometimes the valuation expectations in this part of the world don't look as attractive as they do, let's say, in India. So for us, that's been one of the big challenges to looking at things here. However, having said that, we've seen a lot of very interesting businesses in Kenya. And I think one advantage that you do have in Kenya is that, of course, there's a lot of access then to money that comes from some of the development institutions and so on, which is non-dilutive.
Yes.
So as an equity investor, if you're able to get in early enough, and if you have a company that's able to access those non-dilutive firms, actually your returns can also be very interesting. You do have to have a long time horizon, whether you're in India or over here, to make these work though.
Okay, all right. No, thanks for sharing those insights as well.